بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد قال الله عز وجل في كتاب العزيز بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنما المؤمنون إذا ذكر الله وجلت قلوبهم وإذا تليت عليهم آياته زادتهم إيمانا وعلى ربهم يتوكلون. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله تعالى عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن العبد إذا أذنب ذنبا نكتت في قلبه نكتة سوداء فإذا تاب ونزع واستغفر سقر قلبه وإن زادت حتى تعلو قلبه وهذا الران الذي ذكره الله عز وجل في كتابه كلا بل ران على قلوبهم ما كانوا يكسبون أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. My dear brothers and sisters and friends, it was a Thursday, Maghrib Salah, that the Prophet ﷺ, he led Salah, and after leading the Salah, he was walking back to his house. And he was already feeling very sick. And he couldn't make it back to his house. His house was so close to the masjid. If we've gone to Medina Munawwara, Masjid Nabawi, and we see Rawdat al-Jannah, his house is right next to the masjid. Like literally, you just walk there. But he was so sick that he fell unconscious walking back to his house. And then he tried to get up and lead the Isha Salah, but he again fell unconscious and he couldn't lead the Isha Salah. At that point, he told the people around him to make Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu lead Salah. And for the next, so Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday morning, so you guys just play this Kahoot game. So if you have Isha of Thursday, then you have 3 days, then you have Fajr of Monday. How many salahs is that? 35. This kid plays a lot of salahs. It's not 7 days. You see, he's a smart kid, but so 3 times 5 is what? 15. And then 1 on Thursday, which is? Come on, I can't believe I'm teaching you math. And I flunked every math class in my life. All right? I mean, come on. It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. 5 times 3 is 15. And then you have 1 on Thursday. So you know my 1 on Thursday, 1 on Monday, it's 17. So my son, when they come home, they're doing this like math homework and stuff. I pretend like I'm not there. I'm like, oh. She's like, oh, Buji, what's this? I'm like, oh, 1 second, I gotta go and come back because I don't know what they're doing. And he's only in grade 6. So, I mean, my math is terrible, but not as bad as you guys. So, 17 salahs. 17 salahs that he did not lead. Abu Bakr led in front of him while he was in the room. Now, why am I telling you this? The first salah, which was the Isha salah on Thursday, the Prophet ﷺ heard the voice of Umar bin Khattab going up to lead salah. And he didn't like it. And he told everybody, he said, I said to you, just for the sake of time, I'm going to omit the Arabic. He said, I said to you that Abu Bakr should lead salah, and as long as Abu Bakr is alive, no one can lead salah in front of him. So then, right away, Umar bin Khattab was told to come back, or in some riwayas he started, in some riwayas he was going to go up, and Abu Bakr was put forward and he led salah. Afterwards, the Prophet asked, what made you people, I told you to make him lead salah. What made you make someone else lead salah? And Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, who is the daughter of Abu Bakr anhu, she said it was my idea. Why was it my idea? She said to the Prophet ﷺ, she said, I know my father, you know your friend. His heart is extremely soft. And he cries a lot when he recites Quran. And imagine in this situation, when for the last 10 years in Medina Munawwara, every single time it was salah time, the Sahaba would sit down, look towards the house of the Prophet ﷺ, and he would come and lead salah. So it's the first time ever that this burden is going to be placed on this man's shoulder, and it was carrying those emotions. And then naturally when he recites Quran, he cries anyway. So imagine how difficult it's going to be for him. I never understood why non-Muslims, when they come to the masjid and they're intending to accept Islam, How many times in my life have I seen this? A person walks into the masjid and he prays Jummah, he sits there in the back of the masjid, and then after Jummah Salah, he comes up and he does shahada. We tell him about the deen and this and that. He says, okay, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. He recites the kalima. Many times you will see that this person, as he's reciting the kalima, he starts to cry. Have you seen that before? A convert, he just starts crying. He just breaks down. And I never understood how it's something, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. There's nothing emotional about it. It's a kalima. Of course, there is a lot of emotions in it, but for us, it's just the kalima, right? So what makes this person cry even though he doesn't understand Arabic properly right now? Because where he comes from, his heart's so broken, he gave up so much, in that moment he just starts crying, or she just starts crying. The first time I ever cried reciting the kalima was after my brother passed away. Because your heart's so broken, and you're saying Allah's name and it just makes you cry. I said, La ilaha illallah, you just break down. People, like the first salah I prayed after my brother passed away was Asr Salah. Asr Salah is a city salah. There's no person leading salah, there's no afasi, there's no one like beautiful voice. It's just you and you're reading between you and Allah. And because because the condition that you're in, you just break down. And you're praying even though no one's around you, no one's listening to you, just because of the situation you're in. So imagine we can maintain that. Imagine we can maintain. أَنَا عِنْدَ مُنْكَسَةِ الْقُلُوبِ. Allah says in Hadith al-Qudsi, if you want to find me near the people who have broken hearts. Because for them it's so easy to just cry. Allama Rumi rahmatullah, he says, Ash khwahi raham kun bar ash ke bar. He says, if you want to, the greatest treasure on this earth is the ability to shed tears in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's the greatest treasure. And he says, if you want to get this treasure, that every single time you raise your hand, every time you stand in salah, Thabit al-Bunani, rahmatullah alayhi, he says something interesting. He says, Wallahi, I know when my dua is being accepted. Can any one of us say that? So powerful. Wallahi la a'lamu mata yustajabu li. He said, Wallahi, I know when my dua is being accepted. He says, when? حين اقشعر جلدي ووجلت قلبي وفاضت عيناي. He says, when these three things are happening to my body, I know my dua is being accepted. When I get goosebumps, my iqsha'ara means where your hair on your body stand. وَوَجِلَتْ قَلْبِي, and my heart trembles. إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِذَا ذُكِرَ اللَّهُ وَجِلَتْ قُلُوبُهُم. When they're reminded of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, their hearts start trembling. When they're reminded of Allah. He said, when my heart starts trembling. And tears start flowing from my eyes. At that point, I know my dua is being accepted. I know it's happening. Sometimes you have that. All of you are sitting here right now. The reason this is my topic today, because Sayyid never gave me a topic. So when you don't give me a topic, I'll just talk about everything. So this is what I was thinking about this. I've been reading about this topic last night. I was just reading a book this morning. I honestly was so lost in the book that I didn't even realize there's 15 minutes left of Jummah, and without changing my clothes, I went for a khutbah. So we just kept on going. Then after Jummah, I just came from a program. I was still thinking about it. I said, okay, no, I'll just talk about this with you guys. And it's an interesting topic. So, all of you that are sitting here, every single one of you, I'm going to tell you guys just to take a minute, 30 seconds I'll give you. Every single one of you, including me, I'm not going to be humble, including me, we have all experienced at least one moment in our life where we felt that. We have all experienced it. Now think about that. When was that experience? I'll give you what experience am I talking about? Where you just your body, you just hear maybe a recitation, maybe it was a sight of the Kaaba for the first time, maybe it was the first time you went to Medina Munawwara, maybe when the first time you saw Aqsa, maybe the first time you saw those orphans or the children in pictures in Syria and Palestine. It could be anything. But you just felt these goosebumps. And your heart was just, you lost your heart for a second. وَقَفَتْ قَلْبَكَ. Literally, your heart stopped for a second. And you weren't even thinking about crying, but maybe there was tears swelling up in your eyes. Think about when that moment was. Think about it for a second. I'm not going to ask you to share it, but think about it. Now that moment that you're thinking about is not something that we are trying to relive every single moment of our life, but we cannot forget about that moment. It's not practical to have that moment every single time. But Sahaba did. Sahaba did. They had that moment every single time. Because the way the nature of human beings are, the way the nature of human beings is, that it doesn't matter how good something is, the more you consume it, the more you get used to it. You become numb to it. So whatever your favorite restaurant is, I mean, if you go there every single day for 5-6 days, a time comes where you kind of get tired of the food, right? You ate it so many times. But do you think that's how the Sahaba were with the Prophet ﷺ? You think they got used to seeing him? You think would you get used to seeing him numb? Like, oh yeah, I seen him once, twice. That actually happens though, because, for example, Khabib, right? The first time he came to Warren, when you brought him here, the first time I saw him, I was like, oh, okay, wow, mashallah. Kind of like a little bit starstruck. Maybe 15 minutes later, done. I hope he doesn't watch this. Right? It was not even 15 minutes. We were sitting at a restaurant, done. Khalas. I'm wondering why people are taking pictures of this guy. Who's this guy? And then 2-3 hours, then we went to San Francisco and to Seattle. Done, khalas, because you spent so much time with him that you don't have that same awe anymore. It doesn't hit you the same way. But imagine at our level that we're at, and if we were living at the time of the Prophet ﷺ and we had the same emotions and nature that we have right now, how would we be with the Prophet ﷺ then? Imagine that happened to us with the Kaaba. That every time we see the Kaaba, it actually becomes less and less enjoyable. Wouldn't that be a disaster? That would be a tragedy. And one of the most therapeutic and spiritual experiences to go through is actually go to Mecca for Umrah or Hajj. And if you've seen the Kaaba before, you take your group with you, and instead of looking at the Kaaba, you look at the faces of those people who are seeing the Kaaba for the first time. And that's such a spiritual experience because they're looking at it for the first time. These are adults breaking down. That's Iman right there. Literally. That's Iman right there. And we're there. All of us are there. That's why we're sitting here. But how can we go from there to the next level? That's what we're talking about right now. How can we maintain that? Because we want to be there. Otherwise, none of us would be here sitting here right now. So I was saying about Abu Bakr anhu, that's why Aisha anha said that he should not lead salah because of his heart is so soft. But the same Abu Bakr anhu whose heart's so soft that he cries so much when reciting the Quran, a group of people from Yemen came in his khilafah. So a few months later, a group of people from Yemen came, and they came to accept Islam. After accepting Islam, he told them to go sit down in the corner. And at that time, there was no Miftaah, Iona, all these different organizations. The book of Allah was not in the form of a book. So the only way you can learn knowledge is from a person. Min sudur rijal. So he made somebody go sit with them to teach them Quran. Now imagine these people, they traveled by foot from Yemen all the way to Medina Munawwara to potentially accept Islam on the hands of the Prophet ﷺ, but they missed him, he passed away. So how heartbroken they were already. They missed him. And then, they've never heard the Quran before. So they're sitting down, and the moment the reciter starts to recite Quran, it's written in the books of Hajj about Shaqiq al-Balqi rahmatullahi alayh. He says that I saw a person who was amputated from both legs, dragging himself in the middle of the desert, going somewhere. I said, where are you going? No wheelchair, nothing. He said, where are you going? He said, I'm going to Mecca. He said, how long have you been traveling for? How long have you been traveling for? He said, 7 years. He said, isn't that a long journey? He said, the moment I see the Kaaba, I'll forget about my journey. The moment I see it, I'll forget about all my fatigue, everything. That's something else where you actually feel the sweetness in the difficulty that you're going through for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's a sweetness there. There's an enjoyment. SubhanAllah, I was reading in that book yesterday that Bilal radiallahu ta'ala anhu was asked this question. He said, how were you patient when they were dragging you in the streets of Mecca and they were putting boulders on you? I never read this before. How are you patient? He said, muzijat, listen to this, muzijat halawatul iman bi mararatil adhab. Fatagat halawatul iman mararatil adhab fasabart. He says two things got mixed together. One was the sweetness of iman, and one was the bitter pain of difficulty. They both combined now. Okay, they got mixed together. And when these two things mixed together, the sweetness of iman overpowered the pain of difficulty. And it became so enjoyable that I was patient. No issue at all. No problem. Urwa bin Zubair radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, when his leg became, his illness grew in his leg and it had to be amputated, they told him you have to drink this fluid and not to knock you out. And he says, how can I do that? I mean, I cannot live a moment without doing the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But if we have to cut your leg, amputate your leg when you're awake, while you're conscious, it'd be so painful. You know what he said? Do it while I'm in sajda. What did he say? Do it while I'm in sajda. And they did it. These are not fairy tales. These are not fairy tales. This is not Superman, Batman stories. These are 100% authentic narrations of these great people who came before us. They loved Allah so much. Their hearts, like that moment that you just thought about that you had, that's how they were all the time. Ibn al-Qayyim rahmatullah, he says, مَنْ لَمْ يَدْخُلْ جَنَّةَ الدُّنْيَا لَمْ يَدْخُلْ جَنَّةَ الْآخِرَةِ. A person who does not enter the Jannah of this world will never enter the Jannah of Akhirah. What does that mean? A person who doesn't enter, that doesn't mean go to Disney World? Huh? Jannah of this world, Niagara Falls? No. What does it actually mean? A person who does not enter, does not feel, does not go through the Jannah of this world. And he means by the Jannatul Iman, the garden of Iman, that feeling that you get when you're close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A person asked, this in Hadith al-Qudsi, this munajat, he says, it's written in Ibn Kathir. He said, Ya Rab, asaytuka lam tu'aqibni. He said, I've disobeyed you so much in my life, but you never punish me. You know what he said? He said, yeah, I do punish you, but you don't realize I'm punishing you. He said, Ya Rab, what do you mean you punish me? He's like, did I not snatch the sweetness and enjoyment out of your ibadah from you? That's your punishment. Did I not take it from you? So basically these things, this is the level they were at. Urwa bin Zubair anhu said, you cut my leg while I'm in sajda. And that's exactly what happened. So how do we get there? How do we become, and I'll conclude with this, how do we maintain that level? For me, I remember this level, as I told you to experience it, I experienced this right after my brother passed away on October 15, 2000. It's been 2 years in a month now almost. The first few weeks after he passed away, rahmatullahi alayhi, every single time I heard a surah or a verse, it would just make me cry. Especially the verses of Jannah. I would have Nur Huda, Nur Huda who recites good Quran, Idris Nawaz, Idris from in MI. I would have them recite Surah Rahman in front of me all the time. Literally, just recite Surah Rahman, Surah Waqiyah. Just recite it and it just break down. But slowly, I'm telling you right now, if someone comes and recites Surah Rahman right now, it's not going to be the same feeling. Right? Of course, I'll be able to relate with it more than someone who doesn't have a loved one who passed away. But you don't have to go through that experience to have that experience. Na'udhu billah. That you have to go through that to enjoy that. No, that's not how life is. Life is not that difficult. Allah does not want that from us. He wants people like me to convey the message to you. Okay, that this is how it's supposed to be. Not everyone goes through it, so then now we know how it works. No, it's not possible. That's not right. And Allah is just. So what happens? The nature, how do we, this is the nature of a human being. We become numb to things. That's how we work. The more salah you pray, the more Quran you hear, the more Ramadans that come, you just get used to it. So how can we not get used to it, literally? Because, and this is my concluding discussion over here. Because the reality is, what we're doing right now, the arkan of deen, there's two things in Islam. It's the rituals of Islam. The first is the rituals of Islam. Rituals of Islam, one of the biggest ritual, I'm using the word ritual even though it's a bad translation of rukn, but just to make you understand, a ritual of Islam is Hajj, Umrah. If I ask you right now, you play Kahoot right now, was Hajj and Umrah being done before the Prophet came to this world? Yes, it was. Was it being done? Yes, it was. Who was doing Hajj? Who was doing Umrah? You know the tawaf around the Kaaba? It was always happening. It's not something that's happening today after the Prophet came, people started doing tawaf. No, they were doing Hajj. They were doing Umrah. They were fasting. They were doing tawaf around the Kaaba 7 times, exactly the way we're doing it. They still considered Hajar al-Aswad to be a sacred rock. They were still doing sa'i from Safa to Marwa. They were still feeding the poor, taking care of the guests that come from far. أَجَعَلْتُمْ سِقَايَةَ الْحَاجِ وَعِمَاتِ الْمَسْجِدِ الْحَرَامِ. Like Allah talks to them about this. Let me tell you one more thing. Abu Jahl, the greatest, the enemy of Islam, Allah is referring to these people and saying, وَلَئِن سَأَلْتَهُمْ مَنْ خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ لَيَقُولُنَّ اللَّهِ وَلَئِن سَأَلْتَهُمْ مَنْ نَزَّلَ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً فَأَحْيَا بِالْأَرْضِ مِنْ بَعْدِ مَوْتِهَا لَيَقُولُنَّ اللَّهِ. Allah is saying, listen to the question. He's saying, if you ask Abu Jahl and Abu Lahab, ask them this question. Go ask them. Go ask them. Who created the sky? And who created the earth? And who brings the rain from the clouds? And who brings vegetation out? And who cures the sick? And who helps the person who is, it's all Quran. And who saves the one who's in the middle of the ocean in the storm? Who helps them? Allah is saying in Quran, those who are studying Miftaah, especially those weak students who are here that never actually study, Miftaah is a part-time program. And then in that part-time program, you have part-time students. It's already a part-time program. It's like, this is watered down, and there's a watered down product of the watered down product. Right? That's how bad it is. And we have a couple of those youngsters here. And I'm not looking at the sisters, brothers. Alright, so what is Allah saying? لَيَقُولَنَّ اللَّهِ. The ta'keed. If you ask these people, la is ta'keed. Noon is ta'keed. They will definitely say Allah. Abu Jahl will say Allah. Abu Lahab will say Allah. Seriously? So they were doing Umrah, they were doing Hajj, they were fasting, they were doing Tawaf. They also believed in Allah. They also said exactly. So why was a Prophet sent to this world then? Why did he come to this world if they're already doing that? You know why the Prophet came to this world? Because the essence of those actions were gone. The rituals remained, but the essence was gone. Objectives changed. Doesn't that sound similar today? Essence. Here's a masjid. Here's Quran. Here's Salah. But the essence, and the essence of ibadah is the halawa. Let me say it again. The essence of ibadah is, what's the word? Halawa. Halawa means sweetness. That's the essence of ibadah. It's to feel the sweetness of it. To feel the enjoyment of it. That's the essence of it. And the person who feels the sweetness of it will always come back to it. So how do we get it? Because I'm sure that feeling we had once, and this brother's looking at me and say, oh, we got to finish soon. Yeah. He's saying, take your time. Right? How do we feel it? And how does it go away? Let me tell you something. So if you have an apple or any food, the apple, there's the apple and then there's the sweetness of the apple. There's Ishtar restaurant and then there's the taste of the food, right? Who's gone to Ishtar? I'm not sure if it's halal. Just messing with you guys. All right, because all raising their hands. So there's the food and there's the taste of the food. So now if someone eats food and he doesn't or she doesn't taste the food, maybe there's only 2 reasons why. Either your mom, your father, your sister, your brother forgot to put the spices in it and the salt in it, and that's why something's wrong with the food. Or it's rotten itself, so you can't taste the food. Or, what is the other possibility? COVID. Someone said COVID, exactly. The other possibility is you're sick. You're sick. The food is perfectly fine, but you're sick. I remember during COVID, so we have a boarding school in Warren, just down the road. And so the students found out that, and students are students, right? It doesn't matter who they are, like they're still students, even studying Deen. they still want to figure out a way not to come to class. I remember when I was in Wayne State University, I used to make dua every single day. Oh Allah, winter day, snow day, winter day, snow day. And for me, a snow day was like Jannah, like Alhamdulillah. And you know what's interesting? Snow days used to end up being on Mondays. A lot of times, if you see it, it ends up being on a Monday. It's perfect. You have a long weekend, right? And I said, oh Allah, please, please. And we used to get like maybe 2, 3 in the year, and that was enough for us. Like amazing. Just want to skip class somehow, some way, right? And our professors at that time were very committed. They never missed class for some reason. They used to always come and teach. In our madrasa, in our boarding school, when COVID started, students realized, hey, if I say I have COVID, what's going to happen? I have to quarantine them, right? They're not going to go home. They're from Texas, from all over the place. They're not going to get sent home. They're going to be quarantined in a room for like 3, 4 days, and there's going to be no classes for them. So one day I came in the madrasa in the morning, and there was like 25 students, 25, 30 students. All the teachers said, they all have COVID symptoms. Okay? I said, okay, like, what do you mean? It's like, oh, they're having chills. These things you can't really tell, right? Oh, I'm feeling chills. Okay, you can't tell. My throat messed up. Okay, no problem. So they put them in a big room. I said, it was like 8 o'clock in the morning. I said, cool. So then they can't taste, they can't smell, all that COVID symptoms. So then before lunch, I know what food these guys like. Deer Barn pizza, calzones, right? And chicken wings and this and that. I got like a whole feast ready for these people. And I had the teachers, the staff, go put in a big room for them to feed them. And then I said, make sure they eat food. They're sick, make sure they eat. So now they haven't seen me yet. Now they're eating food, sitting down, and they're munching. I walk in, I ask them, how's the food? They're like, it tastes so good. I said, go back to class. That's it. Sheikh, no, but I have COVID. I said, go back to class. That's it. Finish your food, go back to class. But Sheikh, we have COVID. No, you don't. Like, we didn't get rapid tests. No tests. You're going back to class. That's it. So that's it. How can you taste it if you had COVID? Right? You just said you couldn't. All morning they said we can't taste, and now there's like munching. So there's only 2 reasons why either the food's messed up or you're messed up. Right? Is that right? Can you say that there's only similarly, either there's something wrong with the ibadah or Quran or deen, but there's nothing wrong with that. So what is the conclusion here? There's something wrong with me, myself. And that in the taste buds of deen and ibadat, the halawa is not on the tongue, but it's in the heart. Where is it? In the heart. And every single time a person commits a sin, one portion of their heart that tastes the enjoyment of deen becomes dull. So you no longer can taste with your full heart. نُكِتَتْ فِي قَلْبِهِ نُكْتَةً سَوْدَاء. Every time you commit a sin, one dark spot, another dark spot. So now you're praying salah, you're listening to the Quran, but it's not giving you the same chills. It's not giving the same goosebumps. So this is the reality that we're living in right now. How can we make ourselves better? First of all, إذا أردت أن تجد حلاوة الإيمان وتبلغ ضرورة سلامها فاجعل بينك وبين نفسك حائطا من حديد. One Salafi says, if you want to actually taste the sweetness of Iman and reach its pinnacle, then put between you and your shahwa, your desires for sins, a barrier. Catch yourself before you commit a sin and ask yourself, is it worth it? Catch yourself and then ask yourself. Right before you commit a sin. Before the Prophet said that looking towards a non-mahram, looking towards one glance, towards someone that you're not supposed to look towards, is every glance is a poisonous arrow of shaitan. And the one who catches himself or herself, hadith, authentic hadith in Hakim, it's mentioned that Allah says that I will then, for that person who does that out of fear of me, I will replace for them in their hearts Iman, that they could taste the sweetness of it deep in their core. So every single time you leave, whenever we're making a transaction, especially the sisters over here, my wife, she goes to buy something in the store, she keeps the receipts, the store becomes a whole amusement park experience. She goes, comes back, returns, comes back, goes again, more returns, comes back, and then at the end of the day you bought one thing. Right? And you always saying, look, I bought this, is it worth it? Catch yourself and then ask yourself, is it worth it? Because every single time you disobey your parents, every single time we miss a salah, every single time I swear, every single time I do any of these things, what's going to happen is it's going to take away from the taste of Iman that I could have experienced, and that would have been the experience of Jannah in this world. So catch yourself before you do that. So that's my only advice. At this moment, there's something called wara'. Wara' means hesitation. Just have this hesitation and ask yourself at that moment, is it worth it? لا يبلغ العبد حقيقة الإيمان حتى يدع ما لا بأس به حذرا من ما بأس به. A person can never reach the essence of Iman until he or she always hesitates and asks himself, is this really worth it? Should I really do this? And leaves even things that are permissible out of fear that they may become impermissible. So at nighttime, I don't have my phone on me. At nighttime, and I'll end with this, you start off at 10:30, 11 o'clock on YouTube, listen to lectures. Miftaah Institute. Wow, amazing. You know how quickly you end up watching some cat videos? And someone told me in year one, how the guy's making a swimming pool in the back of his house. Okay? That only happens at night. I can guarantee you that. If you did it in the morning, it won't happen. At nighttime, shaitan's 100% full guard. And that's why our Salaf used to say, be more careful at the hours of night than in the daytime. You want to do any of these things, do in the morning. You want to play video games, play after Fajr. Play after Fajr. Go for it. You will see your stamina for video games after Fajr will be less. And at night, shaitan will give you so much strength. Right? And at night is ghafla. So you won't even realize you're spending 2-3 hours. So, these different things that we discussed today, all I'm asking all of us today is have that level of hesitation, wara'. And inshallah, the more we have of that, the more we'll start tasting the sweetness of Iman. The more we will enjoy deen. And the moment a person tastes the enjoyment of deen, you will always come back for more. You'll always come back for more. My friend, Sheikh Maqsood, if he watches this later, Maqsood, I've been trying to get him to Michigan for 5 years, 6 years. I said, come to Michigan, come to Michigan, come to Michigan. Maqsood. My wife, my kids. Why is everyone blaming their wives? It's always their fault, though, my wife. You don't want to move, that's what it is. One day, he was driving by Michigan and he stopped at Qahwa House with his wife. His wife drank this Adani chai for the first time in her life, and then she said, I'm ready to move to Michigan. Wallah, it's a true story. Okay, I'm ready to move. And they moved a month later. And he's a sheikh at Miftaah right now. Okay, because once you taste something you like, what do you do to it then? You keep going back to it. You stick to it. This is a rule of thumb for brothers and sisters. I'm telling you, it's economics class over here. If someone takes you to a restaurant and they're paying for it, that day, always order something new on the menu so you can taste it. Because if it's something that's not good, at least it wasn't your money. Okay? And if you're paying for it, order the normal stuff. The stuff that you know tastes good. So you keep going back to it. That's what happens. Imagine you start tasting that with sajda. Imagine you start feeling that about coming to the masjid. The moment you walk into the masjid, you feel that. And inshallah, it can happen to all of us because we've already experienced it before in our life. May Allah make us among those who experience it over and over again, and make Him the most important thing in our life, and make us closer and closer to Him. And inshallah, those who get closer to Him can bring others closer to Him. Those who are close to Allah can become lanterns of hidayah for others. And is there the people that are sitting in this masjid right now, does it reflect majority of the community or just a small portion of the community? We're just a small portion over here. 99% are outside. And all of us become like that, inshallah, we can pull everyone to the masjid. Without speaking, without any effort, our hearts will become lanterns of hidayah. Allah make us among those who act upon whatever was said, bring it to our lives and convey it to others. Jazakallah khair. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.